Hello and welcome to the Viewpoints podcast. I'm your host, Christian, and I'm super excited to have our guest with us today. This week, I've invited Doug Hershberger with Hershberger Painting out of Sarasota, Florida. Doug and I had the opportunity of briefly meeting at Expo of 2022. I actually saw he had recorded a reel, and it was of me using the spray booth with Zach Kenny and his virtual spray booth. So I reached out to him. We've kept in touch over the last year, and I thought it would be fitting to have him as one of our first guests. So Doug, welcome to the Viewpoints podcast.
Thanks, Christian. It's good to be here. This is exciting. Stoked.
Yeah, for sure. So Doug, really informal. I didn't send you any questions or anything like that. But I just kind of want to know, tell me how you got into painting and then the development of Hershberger Painting.
Yeah. I'll make the long story condensed here. I grew up painting, born and raised. My dad moved down here to Sarasota in the late 60s, early 70s and started a painting business. He had been painting before that, but my brother and I came along, and most stories are like this. In fact, eerily like this in many ways, where once you hit 9 or 10, you start taking off receptacle plates and doing little things like that.
Right.
I don't know if there's any pictures or anything, but there's a distant memory. My dad will recite it, how I wanted to paint when I was like 6, and he was babysitting when my mom was out working. So he gave me a brush and a bucket of water, and I started painting concrete into it's all downhill from there.
Wow.
So yeah, from an early age we were painting, and it was, frankly, my dad has always been generous. So he was paying us really well. I think I started out $6 an hour, but then I very quickly, by the time I was in high school, I was making $16-18 an hour. And
Wow.
That turned out to be, in combination with a lot of other jobs here and there, the best way, situation, if you will, to get myself through college. And so I ended up painting every spring break and summer break. Never went to Daytona or any of those places, Panama Beach. Was always back home painting. And
Right.
On one hand, it was lucrative for my dad, who never really wanted to grow a business. On the other hand, it was lucrative for me, who had a really flexible but also well-paying job whenever I needed it. So
Yeah.
that was nice. Went off to college and grad school. Ultimately ended up with a master's degree in exercise physiology, and did well. I wanted to be a strength coach, and in a roundabout way was still kind of discovering what my passion was, quote unquote, because that's what all the people told me to do when I was going out of high school, is go to college and find your passion. So 6 years in college.
So as a strength coach, what do you where does that take you? Are you talking about doing like athletics with teams and things like that?
Yes. Yeah. So in traditional strength conditioning, most of the occupational opportunities are in collegiate and professional sports. And so you usually attach yourself to a coach or a coaching team, and that's kind of how you gain your way up the ranks. But it's very similar to the coaching paradigm, and how it's dog eat dog. You have to put in a lot of hours and really work the hardest in order to earn a position in some of the few jobs out there that pay well. And so There's a lot of guys who fizzle out because the novelty of it just turns out to not be that great. So I interned in D1 sports for a while, and came back down to close to home, and spent 4 years teaching, actually. Not directly with my degree, but I did end up teaching English and worked in a residential space for troubled boys for 2 years. And
that wasn't with the public school system?
The first 2 years was not. No, it was a private thing.
Right.
The second two was a charter school in Manatee County here locally.
Okay.
And at that point in time, I had been out of painting for 7-8 years, really. I mean, I painted on a crew up in Kentucky when I was in grad school for one summer, but besides that, I if anything, that gave me a really bad taste in my mouth for painting outside of what I experienced with my dad for nearly 2 decades.
So what was different about that experience that gave you
Man.
that bad taste?
Yeah. I was there for a summer, 2.5 months, and we were at a nursing home, painting the nursing home interior the entire 2 months. And I would show up, and I was there with guys who had been in jail over the weekend, or their time was spent talking about things I really could care less. Sharing just the culture of it for one. For two, the supervisor who was on the job really, he was okay, but the supervision, managerial organization, the structure of the whole thing was pretty sloppy. It's not put together very well. You could tell that if that company had hit a bump in the road or a misgiving somewhere, they would not have been around, but they were lucking out up to this point. And so
were they doing, was it new construction for the nursing home, or was it repaint?
It was a repaint. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
They must have been doing time and material, because there's no way they're making money on it.
Wow.
I remember some of those guys, classic old painters, they took a whole lot of pride in what they thought was their monopoly on the knowledge of the trade. And so much ado was made about some of the minutia, whereas the things that a lot of us talk about in the PCA and kind of in our network of painting contractors, the values that we like to talk about in terms of growing a good team and a healthy culture, were non-existent. So
yeah.
I left there thinking that this is the paradigm. I want nothing of it. And frankly, I was on the way to starting a career. So,
and you said that with your dad's company that he didn't have an interest in building a team, that it was just a family business, and when you guys were available, you helped out.
Yeah, it was a lifestyle business, and he did well. He's never been entrepreneurial.
Okay.
He's very hard working. He's 80, he still paints.
Wow.
All word of mouth. He's advertised a little bit in the newspaper, but nothing else. Yeah, so he did that for 40 years, has done that for 40 years. And, taking care of a family. My mom worked a little bit on and off, but never, 100%. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
I have feelings about that because I've seen it done, whereas everybody's like, grow, 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 grow. And I'm like, well, you don't have to. There's another option. Anyways, I'll tie up my story here and we can talk about some of the details. I ended up teaching school. My wife was a nurse. We got married. Had an infant at the time. My wife got sick. She ended up getting what's called post-viral ataxia, which is kind of debilitating. It makes you feel like you're dizzy all the time. Not quite vertigo, but it was after a virus, and she was down for like 6 months, and so she wasn't able to work anymore, which meant that the side job I was doing as a strength coach in a high school and then teaching school was not cutting it. So I started doing side jobs, painting, quit teaching, and I was personal training at the time too, kind of building my rapport in the community as a strength coach and a personal trainer, and ended up stumbling back into painting. So what started as a few side jobs and some furniture finishing work turned into throwing bids out there, sending some cold emails and getting jobs. And then that was 4 years ago. This is the 4th year since we've incorporated.
Oh, okay.
We actually incorporated October right before COVID.
Oh, really?
It was like, yeah, this is going to be great. We're going to pay the bills now. We're $40,000 in debt because of medical bills, and it's going to be great. And then COVID hit, and you're like, oh, January and February, crap. Okay, well, maybe I should start rethinking that. And then March hit, and it was just work.
March was tough.
For us, it was just it couldn't keep up. So much work. And
really?
It didn't really stop. Yeah,
it didn't stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, March was tough. I remember because it was like, what do we do? Just the uncertainty. And for me, I had been booked out, so I wound up taking all of my exteriors and bumping them up. And then all of my interiors I pushed back. And it was crazy from that point on, but there was definitely a level of uncertainty. I remember when it all first started coming out, and watching the news doesn't help.
No, not at all. Yeah.
So you told us how you got here. What about where are you at today? You said you're 4 years into business. Congratulations.
Yeah.
That's exciting. How many guys do you have? Are you comfortable talking about numbers? How, some guys, they want to talk about how many trucks they have or how many guys they have or sub crews they're running, just whatever you're comfortable with.
Sure. Yeah, I'm an open book. So we have five full-time employees and 2 part-time. Looking probably hiring a new apprentice in the next month or so. I did everything ass backwards, in a sense that I needed to put food on the table, so I just went out and started getting work, and then realized quickly that 1, I wasn't charging enough, and 2, I needed help, and so I couldn't do it all by myself. So I ended up going through a handful of people before I realized that my culture is not. I can't just expect just anybody to be at my level of integrity and virtue without vetting them somehow. So started focusing a little bit more on culture building, and we're now at a strong 7 total W-2s. We have used and do use 1 consistent sub crew, 1099 trade partner, and they pretty much go through an exterior a week. We've kept them busy for over 2 years now.
Nice.
Pretty much. They don't really do any other work besides ours, and that's a partnership. I've pulled them aside multiple times and said, "Hey, this kind of feels like an employee relationship. Do you want to be hired? I'd be more than happy to hire you." No. We want to keep this up. So that's what we've been doing with them. And then I have a couple other sub crews on call for flexibility issues. Our first year we did 175,000. Our second year we did 330,000. Our third year, last year we did. So the year that we incorporated, we did 170. The next year, which was COVID year 2020, we did 330. Then our technically second year, we did 775 or something similar. And then last year we did 940. And so this year we're on track to do $1 million or so.
That's awesome.
That's revenue. So 4 years ago, me listening to me right now would be like, "Oh, so you have $1 million in the bank." Like, I have a master's degree in kinesiology, and I'm over here like, "Oh yeah, okay, yeah, that makes perfect sense." No, revenue is not profit.
Top line equals bank balance, right?
That's a negative ghostwriter.
Yeah.
No, I quickly realized, and all those years up until last year, I essentially paid whatever I ran money through the company, and the only money that I used to pay our bills was leveraged through credit cards. So I just ran money through credit cards because we just weren't profitable. We were producing like fiends, right? But we weren't profitable. So last year, 900 some thousand, we did okay. Could do better. Absolutely could do better. Again, I'm super hardworking, productive. You tell me what the objective is, I'm going to fight tooth and nail to achieve it. But smart business operations, we're just at the place where I'm starting to back off and say, we need to get these things back in order. It's easier to say than do, but I'm in the middle between say and do.
Right. You're in discovery.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
Because honestly, I don't think if you don't know where you're going, then any road will get you there, right?
That's right.
So that's what happens a lot of times. Like for myself, I stayed small, and I just kept my calendar full, and I wasn't really looking to hire anybody. But in the same way, was I staying booked because I was giving quality and value at a profit, or was I staying full and busy because I was the cheapest guy out there, right?
That's right.
So, I feel like, and I don't know if this describes it, I feel like this describes what you're talking about too. Like, we're in that mode of trying to turn busyness into a business, change that Y to I, and just really get down. We're doing it at kind of like two opposite sides of the spectrum. You've got the workflow, you've got the crews. Me, I'm still solopreneur. I've got the not the capacity, but I've got all the avenues lined up to get there. But we're kind of just like figuring out the same stuff from opposite sides. So
Yeah.
at what point on this 4-year journey did you realize that that something needed to change?
Well, so 6 years of college didn't just afford me a degree in knowing how to program your exercise routine. It enabled me to identify problems quickly. I mean, I'm pretty good at that. I'm pretty good at getting a finger on what's wrong. What I'm not that great at is getting the solution implemented. And so, if I were in a partnership, I'd be the visionary 100%. I would not be the implementer. And so, to answer your question, right off the get-go, it wasn't like, oh yeah, this is unicorns and rainbows and lots of money in my bank account. It was somehow I know that if I do work and I work hard, I'll be rewarded. Ergo, I'm going to go ahead and do that. And it wasn't that easy of an equation. And I knew that going into it. Now, I started looking around for people trying to do what I'm doing that think the way I do pretty much immediately. And I ran across all the names in the industry. There's lots of people out there looking to make money off of business people and painting. But there's some solid names too. So I stumbled across PCA, stumbled across...
People like what specifically are you? I mean, I don't know if you're willing to name drop.
Oh,
but.
Well, on a positive note, I won't name drop. Like, I think it's funny that there's almost as many public profiles trying to friend request me on Facebook that are quote unquote business mentors or advisors for the painting industry than there are actual painters.
Oh, yeah.
It's like much respect, Nick Savick, because you're doing the thing and you're sharing all the information. But all these guys, especially that are in their 20s, who think that they can like Facebook request me and somehow slide in my DMs about how they can help me with my business. Get out of here.
Yeah, especially now. I mean, the fish are jumping into the boat. So, like, if you're telling me that you've got this system to sell leads and to do all these things, that's not the issue.
Yeah.
That's not the issue that I'm having. You know, if you are having trouble finding leads, you've got bigger issues at this point. Yeah. So, like, what type of systems or so you're talking about like LinkedIn coaches and Facebook mentors and people like that?
Well, the first community I actually ended up finding value in was the Business Brush group. That one in my searches just appealed to me right off the bat, and the community in there was really, really helpful. It was more intimate. There's perks about, like, for example, the painting contractors group where pretty much anybody can join and start a discussion about anything. There's perks for that, for sure. But there's what I need to solve problems that I see in my life is a community that's small, tight, and is focused, and not a fire hose. And because I can pretty quickly identify what information is relevant, what I need to listen to. That's not really the issue. The issue is surrounding myself with a community that's going to help me implement it. Stop. Sorry about that. My dog is.
You're good.
Give me just a second. She wants me to go play Frisbee.
Oh,
in the middle of the night.
It's too late for that.
She's been at home all day. She's a healer too, so she needs constant action. It's like
for sure. Yeah.
ADHD. It's crazy. Anyways, we have 2 kids.
Busy house.
So the Business Brush group was really helpful. Quickly started to listen to. I've always been a big podcast listener, so I started listening to.
Yeah, you were talking about before the dog. You were talking about what you were, how you were identifying what you needed from these groups.
Oh yeah. So, and you initially asked what were some of the when did you know that something was wrong? And I think
how were you able to identify that?
Yeah, I think the most immediate feedback would be when we would get a job, we would go do it, and I'd realize that I absolutely need to get paid yesterday in order to pay the bills I have today. when at that point I was like, yeah, I'm relying on getting this job done as soon as possible so I can pay the bills from the last job or pay just to stay caught up. There's no money in the bank per se, even though we were producing so much work.
Right.
And it's, I also, granted, I don't have a degree in business. I never really I stumbled into this, right? So it was all brute force and no head. Most of us don't get the luxury of like sitting down and getting a business plan and thinking through, how am I going to run my painting business? Because most of the time we look at our bank account and think, I need work. I need a job. I need to figure out a way to get money in my bank account.
Yeah.
And at that time we were 40 grand in debt with medical bills, and we were already using credit cards to try to just make sure we met our mortgage payment. So that's not a good decision. If I could go back and tell myself, hey, no, you're pretty good at selling. Go find a job you can make 6 figures selling for a little bit, and then if you really want to start a painting business, go for it.
Wow.
But again, most of us stumble through it. So, and I would hear guys like Nick May, Nick Slavic, a lot of guys would say, your first step, you probably need to start charging more. That's probably your first step. Obviously, you need to know your numbers. Nick Slavic likes to talk about job costing. But essentially, what it means is, when you're the other thing. This is where I go on rants because I have a lot of thoughts about this. The other thing is
you're good.
The conventional way of construction is unit pricing, where someone says, oh, what do you charge per square foot? Or what do you charge per door? Or what do you charge for this? What we don't talk a lot about, or I didn't get that, was it's all going to be based around the time you spend on it. Like, if you charge $100 a door, but you spend 2 hours on it, and you used up a gallon of paint because you had to do 3 coats because, whatever, in the end, you need to charge more. Or if no one's going to accept that price, then you got to figure out your system better. Productivity system needs to improve.
Yeah, or if you're just charging to scuff sand and then you start scuff sanding and all the paint falls off, then you have to, have to strip the whole door down. It's going to cost different. And I know in the beginning I would eat those costs because I wasn't job costing, because I was like, oh, well, I'm doing my customer a favor. I'm doing this. Right. But us as the contractor, when we don't have a standard and we're not factoring that in for our clients, like saying it's two I'm charging for 2 coats of this and 2 coats of that, or this level of prep, and we go outside of that, we think we're doing them a favor, but really we're paying to do their renovation or their improvement on their home. They're seeing the ROI with property value increases, or being able to live in the space and enjoy it. But what do we get out of it?
There's that. And a lot of us, or for me at least, I thought, well, I can just do it, get it done, get paid, walk away, and the next time will be different. And I thought that hundreds of times over, right? And so when it comes down to it, if you don't have the money, really it comes down to money. If you don't have the money, because money is time, and if you don't have money, then you got to use your time. If you're using your time, then you can't sit down and analyze whether you're making money. It's a very deathly spiral to be in. But if you can't pause and say, okay, this job cost me this much in materials, this is how much time I spent on it, prorate that and figure out, oh, I just made $18 an hour. I could go work at McDonald's because they're taking managers for $18.50, and I could make more money and not have this giant headache constantly on a daily basis. Some of us are nice guy people pleasers who just love to achieve, but what matters most is the client's happy. And so, like you said, you just eat the cost because you're like, well, I'm building a reputation, and I would never absolutely hate if the client would feel deceived or cheated out of this. So I'll break my back and martyr myself out of virtue. And that's a hard mindset to get out of.
So I guess the one thing that that kind of brought up when you were saying, a friend of mine said that the irony of life is either you have the time to enjoy it and not the money,
Yeah.
or the money to enjoy it and not the time. But really, I think when you come up with a plan and then execute on that plan, things start to change. And I think you and I are both in that spot now, to where we're trying to develop plans for our business instead of just flying by the seat of our pants. Because I did the same thing, bank balance accounting. As long as I had money in the bank, I felt like I was doing good. And then money started drying up, and then money started getting big, and then drying. Like, I don't even know. So like this year I started job costing. So let me ask you that. Are you job costing now?
I don't actively do it. We have tabs on things. Right now I'm just hurting for trying to get administration stuff done while also being in the field some to try to keep things moving. Project man, I'm wearing all the hats. So, and all the hats in a $1 million company is a lot of hats.
Yeah, for sure. So with 6 guys in the field, a full-time sub crew, and part-time sub crews, how much time are you spending in the field right now? Currently,
so the past 2.5 weeks, and probably next week too, we've been uber busy, and so I've been plowing through small jobs on my own. So you asked about job cost. I for these jobs I'm doing my own, I'm definitely job costing. My other crews have budgets, so, and I'm just being honest. If you ask, are you job costing? I'm not, but each job has a budget based on healthy margins in the painting industry. So 40 to 50% labor, 10 to 50% materials. And I have 2 guys who are my leads who would lead jobs like that. We have 2 big jobs going on. They're leading both of those. Each is leading one. And they know the budget. And so we're using WhatsApp on a daily basis. We're reviewing how progress is going. Are we staying on track? What strategy do we need to implement this morning so that today we can overcome this hurdle? Part of me that is I've learned over the years. One reason I ended up in coaching strength and conditioning is because one of my passions is teaching and coaching. So I really get life out of that. So that's something that comes naturally. I have 2 guys who they're coachable and they're solid. And again, if we never make money as a company, that's a dumb statement. But if we never do, if we're unsuccessful in all other accounts, I can promise you, everybody who works for me is going to walk away and say, that's the best business I've ever worked for. And I know that 100% because I've been told that already. So the culture I built is extremely healthy, which is I fall back on that when I'm not doing the job cost and not the other stuff. But I can say, hey, Benny, this needs to be done. Or I can't be there right now. I need you to be me on that job site. 100%, they're going to do that. That's a special situation to be in, and I am proud of that. So, those jobs have labor budgets, and most of the time we're trying to work on sticking to those. For quarter 2, I have plans to kind of revamp expectations for employees, similar to what Slavic has, and that, in order to stay with this company, you have to come in under budget for 75% jobs. You have to do this and this and this, and then try to figure out an incentive program for those people who are high performers. So back to what I was saying in terms of, am I in the field? I have been in the field the past 2.5 weeks, and I've been job costing those jobs, and I'm producing like $5K plus a week. Just trying to get things done.
Just crushing it.
Yeah. I mean, we did a $2,600 job today in one day with me and a helper I pulled off of a different job. And, because I know that we're so busy right now that I know if I would rather those clients be happy and me be in the field for a little bit and they come back to me later, than tell them, hey, we just can't get to you right now. How about 3 weeks from now? And they're pissed. So right now I'm in the field almost every day.
But let me challenge you on this. I'm going to give you a little pushback. Yeah. So, I understand that there's certain clients out there that they'll call and they're like, hey, I just had this happen to me. They said that they were closing on Friday and they want somebody to paint next week before they move in. Right. I had that happen to me twice this week.
But did they already put a down payment? Did they already sign contract?
Oh no,
Okay, these are
no,
clients that
it was new.
these are client. Here's my Christian. Here is my chief dilemma. That if I can solve this, I will have won the challenge of life, and that is,
So this is your biggest pain point right now. So
this is the
lay it
biggest
on
people.
me.
Yeah, no one's given me a solution yet. So if you come up with a solution for me, I will personally drive up to Orlando and shake your hand.
Listen, as part of like this whole process and journey with this podcast, I've clearly stated I am not a coach, I'm not a mentor. I have not figured it all out.
Respect.
Okay.
Yeah.
But just like I tell my clients when I do a color consultation, I may not be a licensed interior designer,
Yeah.
but think of it like whitewater rafting. I'm the guy in the back with the bugle, and I say, hey, watch out for the rocks. There's a tree over here. There's a waterfall coming up.
Yeah.
You've got the oar. You've got the paddle. You're steering it. I'm just kind of like helping guide you a little bit. So like lay it on me.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it.
Well, so I was born and raised in Sarasota here, so I have a strong network. I am not about to put this on me as a marketer or as a salesperson. I am totally exploiting my dad's reputation in a positive way, and the fact that I know everybody in the city. I'm very connected. So that being said, we get a lot of work word of mouth, and a decent amount of that, probably 60% of that is from contractors, and it's mostly remodelers. We've done work for other contractors, custom home builders, all the premium. I mean, you name them, they've won all the awards in the area. We've done work for them. We've cut ties with a lot of them because contractor work is not as profitable and it's very chaotic. But some of the ones that we work with are great people. I like them a lot. Two of them in particular I actually grew up with. And so here's the problem is contractor work doesn't go like my private clients where they call, they're a lead. Either they're ready to they're inbound or outbound. I sell them. They get in our pipeline. They pay the deposit. They get put on our calendar schedule. That deposit means that we're going to prioritize them. So they're in my calendar. Yeah. So then again, another client call in. They go through the same process. They get on the calendar. My calendar has a nice spread of we're going to spend 2 days here at Miss Jones. We're going to spend 3 days here at such and such. And it's beautiful, right? And I can allow time for a little extra time for a job that's questionable, just in case we go over time. And it's wonderful. Contractors, yeah, I think this project will be done. The drywallers will be done in 2 weeks. They're telling me they'll probably get done before that. Can you give me 4 weeks heads up? Yeah, sure. Okay, next job. Yeah, I think so April such and such. Yeah. They're telling me they'll be done and they'll lay out this nice schedule. Yeah. And I don't hear from again for until the week before. Yeah, so drywallers haven't started yet, so we're gonna you can't come in till blah blah blah. Or they'll give me a call. The homeowner's really getting on me and they want, we're behind schedule. Can you just come in and start painting? We show up and there's non-textured walls, there's holes cut out by electricians.
It's not even ready.
And it royally F's up my schedule every single time. And right now we have 2 very large remodels, 5,000 square foot. Actually 3, but the 2 we started on, we're working on. And then we have another one that, God bless his heart, he's the project manager, he's the owner, he does everything, and it's his family business. Yeah. But and you come at them and you're like, well, drywaller. I showed up and like the drywaller skimmed some of the repairs, but they didn't texture this, and this. The floor is absolutely dirty. The client's stuff is everywhere. There's baseboard. Wow. Well, you can't. And they'll come up with excuses all over the place of how you should be there doing the painting. And I'm not one to look. I've had my share of confrontations. I have no. I'm more than ready to confront somebody, to be confrontational, but it doesn't get me anywhere. Right. So, I'll hear them out. Yeah. Okay. You know what? Here's what we can probably do. We'll come in and we'll paint the bathroom so your plumbers can do their fixtures. And so we'll do things like that. Or I'll show up on a Saturday and spray an elevator shaft so you guys can install the elevator on Monday. That's my problem. It's profitable work because they really like us because we do really good work. And in the end, here's what I know Slavic, Nick May, all these guys will say, well, you need to build your business so you don't have to rely on contractors anymore. Okay. But when I job cost those jobs, I'm making stupid money on those jobs. And if I try to charge those same clients, but not through the contractor, for some reason, it's very difficult to sell those clients because they are big jobs. 5,000 square foot interior repaint. I mean, I just looked at one last week in that same area, just down the road from the one we're doing for this contractor. I'm going to send that contractor a bill for a lot of money when we're done. And I did an estimate for about the same for these clients. Actually, it was a little bit more. No, it would have been a little bit less. It was all oil-based trim, so my competing bid didn't have anything in their contract about sanding the trim before painting with latex on oil, and I explained that to them. They probably want it. Long story short, I would not have made as much money working for those clients as I am through this contractor on this remodel.
Right.
That's the problem. So am I willing to make money but deal with headaches? Yes.
So I think based on what you're saying, and if I'm getting it right, it's a scheduling conflict that you're having, that you have a steady pipeline of work coming in from these contractors that you've known your whole life, that have worked with your dad, and it's good work, but it's a scheduling issue that, like we know, construction, they're giving you stuff to pencil in, and they're either not committing to it, or they're either ahead of schedule or behind schedule, and it's throwing you off. Yeah. So just a couple things off the top, and I wouldn't say you alluded that some people might advise you to just get rid of contractor work altogether. I would only say that if it's not profitable.
Right,
so
exactly.
First
I
off,
totally agree with it.
So first off, job costing this contractor work to make sure that it is profitable and it's staying profitable is number one. And then number two would be using the PCA cost and estimating guides, because within those, it actually has standards, like industry standards, and you can reference that guide if you have it in person. Reference that guide of rework, touch-up work, extra trips, all those things. You should be able to now, going forward, have communication with the PM, with the site super, whoever's working those jobs, say, I can do this. It's going to cost you an extra trip charge, because now they're understanding that Doug has a schedule. It's like, we can't just expect him to come at our beck and call anytime we snap. I think implementing like a trip charge, or really sticking to what is a touch up, if it's on the back end of it, or if like out of sequence work. You mentioned that there was an issue with the trim. If you're quoting them and they know the process is, like for me, it's ceiling, trim, and doors, and then walls, and they don't even have the trim installed, like that's out of sequence work. So you're going to have to change your price based on that. Another bit of advice that I've always, that I heard and I've always followed, is when you do have a change order, no matter what deposit you have already, when the change order is signed, you collect the full amount of that change order upon signature. Yeah. Otherwise, it doesn't get completed. And then, because the other thing is, the opposite side of that is you wait until the end of the job to collect all of these change orders, and there could be a fight, So collect the change orders as soon as they're signed. The very last thing that I'd have for you would, and this is how I have to implement, because I am still kind of a martyr for some of the work that I do, although I do establish change orders with clients, is, and then also being a one-man operation, and you know how it is in Florida, it could be raining at 2, and then, you never know. If you don't like the weather in Florida, just wait 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Is establish a queue for homeowners. So this is something that I've done. Essentially what it would imply is that when you get a client, they would, and you've sold the job direct to a homeowner, you'd collect a non-refundable deposit for them to get on your schedule.
Yeah.
This is different from the materials deposit that you'd normally collect at the beginning of the job. And then you've collected it, say now you're in queue. And then the benefit to doing that is, let's say, for example, it's a week before this 5,000 square foot construction contractor build house, and they're not ready. You can make a couple phone calls, go down your list in the queue, find out which of those clients is ready, and then you can fill in like that, and fill in a week or 2 weeks. Collect your main deposit at that point and get them going through. Or if you have to push someone back, they know that you're giving them a range. And I found that my clients, they feel that that's fair. Me personally, I'm not collecting an initial non-refundable deposit, but at your volume, I'd recommend doing that so you don't have people continuing to price shop and then just jumping off your queue without you knowing at your volume. That's something that I would eventually like to get to. Do you think something like that could work?
You're collecting a deposit before you go to an estimate?
No.
So once you've made a sale, then you're collecting a deposit to get into the queue.
Yes.
Yeah, we do a 30% deposit upon sale. The contract and deposit are required before we even think about them as a client. That's part of the sale.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's
okay.
Partly in trust to get on our schedule that we're going to prioritize them. The other part is because of the cash flow issues I've had in the past, making sure there's money up front. And it's helpful for scaling. What was I going to say? It's interesting because I've heard Zach Kenny talk about this. I'd be hard pressed to find a client who is willing to sit on their hands without having an idea of when we're going to come. Most of the time, they're ready whenever we sell the job. 95% of the time, they're ready. They would like it done next week, and they're willing to wait.
Well, for sure,
right? They're willing to wait, but they're not willing to wait in a queue that would otherwise contain another 10 clients. They would like a date, and I usually say that I'm going to collect 30% from you, and I'm going to tell you in the next day or two when we're going to put you on the schedule, and I'm going to hold myself to that.
Yeah, but throughout this process, you're absolutely right. Communication's 100% important.
Yeah.
So for me, like right now, I'm booked out 60 days. Upon initial contact with a client, if they fill out the form on my website or they're just calling me because they found me, I'm not hanging up that phone unless they understand that, unless they understand what my lead time is. Yeah. Because I don't want to drive across town. I don't want to do any of that if they're expecting something to be done next week.
Right.
I just can't get to it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
To be honest with them. I mean, I've had people hang up on me when I tell them that I can't even do an estimate for a week and a half, depending on how my schedule is for that week. And that's fine. They've self-selected themselves out of my system. But so I think if you've preconditioned them and pre-qualified them that say, hey, we've done work for you in the past, or whatever the case is, you got a referral from so-and-so, things are very busy right now. This is a realistic timeline. We're 45 to 60 days out, giving them a range, not I'm going to be doing work on May 2nd. I'm scheduling for May 2nd. And that's kind of where your flexibility comes in, is giving them a 2 to 3 week range of when you could start, and then being able to kind of filter in that way. I've had pretty good success with it, but again, I'm not at your volume.
Yeah.
But I am conditioning my clients as far as that goes. If we are beyond 30 days out, again, when they are agreeing to do the work with us and accepting the bid, I communicate with them again. Awesome. You're in the queue. When we're 30 days out, I'm going to go ahead and give you a call. Jason Phillips likes to call it he calls them weekly hugs. Yeah. I don't have the capacity to do that weekly, but I let them know when we're 30 days out, I'm going to call, make sure you know that we're 30 days out, depending on weather. And then when we're 2 weeks out, your deposit is due. And then, we have an actionable start date going forward. Yeah. I've had pretty good success with that. But I think no matter what you wind up doing with the schedule, is communication is key. And a lot of times I know for me, I've panicked and I freaked out over having something change in my schedule. And I'm like, oh no, now this job's taking even longer. And if I leave this current job and move to the next job that I have scheduled, it's going to cost me more money. Like, I just need to finish this, but then I don't want to piss off this next client either. And a lot of times I know I play that story in my head that I'm just going to be pissing everybody off. But a lot of times you call and the client is like, oh yeah, sure. That's fine. I had this last week, I finished a job with a client. I told him it would take 4 days. It wound up taking us 5 days to get it done. I called him, again, 2 weeks out, making sure that we collected the deposit. And I wanted to verify that we were still good to start on Monday. And he's like, well, someone will be there. Like, I felt something was off in our conversation. And it turns out he was having like an eye surgery that Monday. And, it wasn't the best time to be welcoming, a contractor that you're working with for the first time in. So I was flexible and I moved him up and then moved everything that I had for that Friday to Monday. Like, I had to do some rearranging, but because I had given all of the clients a range of time instead of a specific, this is your day, everybody was super flexible. Even though it was stressful for me in the moment, it all worked out,
Yeah,
I don't know if that helps or not.
Yeah, so it's hard when you're at scale. There are days that I yearn to be a one-man show. How efficient I could be if I was by myself, and then the one job that I need help on hits, and that happens about every week, and then I realize I can't do that. And you have to learn to work with people, because that's what this business is about. And that's where, I'm extroverted by nature, so I get my life from that. And the moments where I'm just pissed at life in general and people and just don't want anything to do with them, I just have to get through that, because I know it's going to be green on the other side. Right. That being said, though, yeah, I appreciate that feedback, and I'll just mull that over a little bit. The Q thing is interesting. The years that I've bent backwards and people pleased has gotten me a long way. Not that I hear a lot of guys talking like, "Oh, I was a martyr and I never got it." I built. We have 40 plus 5-star Google reviews and nothing less. I have my name is out there and it's all positive. To the point where our local Benjamin Moore dealer is in full faith will put us out there for any job, any problem, and they've never had negative feedback. So that's earned me a lot. Do I have money to show for it? No. Will I? Well, if I keep pushing forward, yeah. Right? And then implement better planning, better strategies. That's what we're all doing. Hopefully, if you're doing the same thing over and over again, it's
insanity, right? But along with that, so you're talking about revamping your system, or you're fine tuning your system now to where your schedule is a little bit better, and things like that. So if you're doing the behind the scenes stuff, you should be able to charge more for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
To your clients, because that's what they're paying for. I just had a conversation with a client, and I charged her a good price or I quoted her a good price for the work that she was wanting to do. I called to follow up. I was on time for my appointment. Like, everything seemed to go well. I listened to all their pain points, and it was like almost $30,000 worth of work, because it started off with this one small job, and then they wanted all this other stuff done. But I communicated with her. I followed up with her yesterday, and I said, "Hey, I haven't heard back from you. I just wanted to make sure. Did you have any questions? This is another touch point that I've been working on having with my clients, instead of just letting quotes go dead." And she's like, "Oh, well, I'm waiting to hear back from 2 other guys." Okay, so what is it that you're thinking? What is it that you're looking for out of a contractor that you don't feel that I've been able to deliver? And she starts giving me compliments and raving about everything. And she's like, "But we still want to, hear back from 2 other guys." I said, "Okay, so when do you think you'll hear back from them?" She's like, "I can't get anybody else to return the call."
Yeah.
So like, is communicating, is that important to you, to get this process done? I said, they haven't even stepped foot in your house yet, and they're hard to communicate with. I can't imagine how that is. So, like, really rubbing in that pain point that she was having, and like, hey, she's clearly him and hawing over the price, because it's a large house. It's a lot of work, but I charged a fair price for what the house, it was the right price. I don't want to say fair price. It was the right price for the work that she asked for. And like the level of execution that's going to come with that. And level of execution isn't always just how you apply with the brush. Level of execution is your sales system and communication and experience and all that. So definitely looking at as you're moving things up, making sure that your price is going up, and you never know, like, just raise it 3%, 5%. It doesn't have to be this huge jump. And as long as your close ratio isn't going down, or even better, your profit percentage is going up, then keep doing that. Keep raising the prices. Push the boundaries to see how far you can go.
Yeah, no, we're there. Trust me. I'm throwing prices out, and people are like, "Yeah, you're double." That's fine. Totally okay. If we're not the right people for you, and you asked me to quote all this work, and you think it's not worth that, then I would rather not be on this job, and that's okay. So we get enough leads, and I'm charging enough. At this point, I think, I think we're a lot better than what we used to be. The thing I'm working on, so the scheduling problem, I kind of first principles it backwards a little bit, where if I can get my people to be more predictably efficient, so that I know exactly how much time they're going to spend on that job, I know exactly how to plan, where that's one of the biggest issues. And so going back to what I talked about in Q2, I want to start implementing this more strict, like, you need to be meeting budget 75% of the time. If you're not, we're going to have a talk. And if we can't get you on a plan to get to that point, then this is not the position for you. And laying that down as an ultimatum, instead of like, you're enriching to this culture. I like you a lot. Stay on our team. And yet they don't produce at budget chronically. That's an issue, not just for profit, but also for scheduling, because now they're on jobs that take twice as long when I didn't anticipate that if I were there. So that's one thing with all this information that's out there. You have guys like Jason Parrish who have figured it all out somehow, and Nick Slavic who's got it all down on paper. Well, they did that one bit at a time. So I've learned to stop trying to see the big picture in terms of all the problems that I need to solve right now, and just one thing, keep moving on. Once the initial issues are in place, the money in the bank, the cash flow, the right pricing, the systems that at least make us seem professional, if not fully are professional, and then start to chisel away the back end stuff. So that's kind of where I'm at now.
Right. Yeah, so it really, I think everything that you've been talking about as far as like your pain point, it's all stemming around efficiencies. efficiencies of time, efficiency of money, efficiency of scheduling, and things like that. So I think you definitely got a good look at what you're needing. I mean, and if there's any way that I can help or anything like that, just
Absolutely,
let me know.
Yeah. We'll stay in touch.
Let me know. It's been really exciting following you on Instagram, online, with your journey since we met over the last couple of years. Were you at Expo this year?
No, I would have liked to go,
No.
but for those of us who don't live in that area, I mean, it would have cost $2,000+ to get over there, and a hotel and all
Yeah.
that stuff, and it's not worth that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I still have. I'm actually in my notebook from 2022, and I'm still working on things that I took notes on back then. I think one of the easiest things to implement right away was I think you sat in on Zach Kenny's, because I noticed on yours you've got Hershberger Painting and Raising the Standard is the name. So I get a message from Raising the Standard. Which is super smart. Why put your name there twice? Just a good bit of knowledge on that. Cool. So we talked about a pain point that you're currently dealing with. And if you're listening to this podcast and you have some advice for Doug, Doug, can you share your sideways now?
Right.
Can you share what the best way for someone to get in contact with you is? If they want to reach out to offer some advice?
You can call or text me at my phone number, 941-374-2057. info@hershbergerpainting.com is the email address, and then we're mostly active on Instagram. That's just Hershberger Painting.
Awesome. So what is one pain point that you did have that you have worked through? Maybe like a tip or two on how, or an actionable item that you did work through on that.
That's a good question. There's been a lot of little wins here and there, and I'm not somebody to feel like I've arrived. So even though I have a win, I feel like there's always something I can work on in that aspect.
But there's levels to this,
That's right.
right? So just because you have a pain point on something specifically, you could have solved it at a certain volume. That doesn't, or with a certain employee, that doesn't mean that it's not going to come back later on.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I think something that and this is a phenomenon that if you've experienced it, you know exactly what I mean, where when you are just fighting to survive, you're just trying to put money in the bank, if you're a personality, you're either going to burn or you're going to succeed, but you're going to succeed as a martyr. And that is, if you're a people pleaser, it's a rough cycle to get out of. And then once there's money in the bank, then it's a lot easier to say no to people and select your battles. And something, I wouldn't call it a win or a pain. Well, it is a pain point I got over. But when we did finally become a little bit profitable and I was able to relax a little bit, I had a much clearer lens to look at my business and the clients that we chose to work with, and dealing with confrontation and some issues where I could just say, yep, no, this is not for us. And there's no harm here for me saying that. I was able to acknowledge that I'm not here just to please you. Because I was able to, right? So I think there's a freedom there for people who have money. And I hurt for those people who are just trying to make ends meet, and saying no is not as easy. But that awareness now, if we ever end up in the position where we don't have money, I think I can retain that and continue to be more discerning because I've experienced it now. Whereas before, I just didn't know.
Right.
I never tasted what it was like to have money in the bank. Like that. And so now that I have, I think I can deal with it better. Where I have those situations where I need to say no, because in the end, it's not going to help either party.
Right.
Whether that's employees or
sometimes
clients,
we forget.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes when we forget that when you say yes to everything, you're saying no to a lot of things because you're booking yourself up
That's
too
every
much.
decision, right? Every
You know?
decision is by virtue
Yeah.
no to everything else. Yeah.
Yeah.
My phone is probably going to die soon, so I can swap
No worries.
over to a charger real quick, or if you want to end it.
No, I think we've got
Okay.
plenty for this one. I think we have more stuff that we can definitely take apart. But I also want to be respectful of your time. It's already 9 o'clock. So I want to be respectful of your time as well. So a couple things before we dismiss here. I've got a speed round questions. Okay.
Sure.
So it's going to be either option A or option B. You get to pick just whatever comes to your mind. It's 3 questions that we're going to be asking painters. Okay, so the first one is tape or no tape, gloss or matte, gloss or matte.
Application specific. Do I like in terms of what I like or what I use the most?
What
Gloss.
what you like,
100%
what you prefer.
FD gloss all day, baby.
Okay, W-2 or 1099.
That's on principle. I mean, I know 1099 would be more profitable, but I have thoughts, opinions.
Yeah, I think we'll put a pin in that one for another episode. Doug, it's been a pleasure having you here. Before we exit, just is there any burning desire, anything that you'd like to share with the audience before we go?
Yeah, I would say I wish I could have typified my experience 4 years ago, what I was like. But if anybody listening is in that position, I am an open book. I would encourage you to reach out and talk. And there's no pressure, but I'm freshly out of that mindset, not quite all the way out. And I wish for somebody who would make themselves as available that I'm willing to make myself as available. That's a tongue twister. I wish there was somebody like me 4 years ago that is willing to just be an ear to talk through some of this stuff and explain some of the things that are just dumb questions. Like, what do you mean by W-2 and 1099, right? Things like that where like, oh, you should know this if you're in business.
Yeah.
Well, let's backtrack a little bit. So
so many of us are technicians first, and then we're trying to figure out this business thing on that.
So yeah,
on the
if
backside.
anybody's listening and it's like, oh, that's me, I'm stumbling my way through this, hey, contact me, because I would like to expedite your growing process by helping you avoid some failures.
Yeah. Avoid some pain points. That's what we're here for.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So on that note, go ahead and share your contact info one more time, and I'll be sure to type it all up in the show notes for people to reach out to you.
Phone number 941-374-2057, info@hershbergerpainting.com, and then our Instagram handle is just Hershberger Painting.
Awesome. Doug, it's been a pleasure having you. Get some dinner and get some rest. I know you've had a long day, but I really appreciate you taking the time for joining us on the podcast
thanks
today.
for having me, Christian. I appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Okay.
All right. Bye.